So tell me, who's Andrew Mondia?
Andrew Mondia is a Canadian-Swiss creative visionary whose one-man show was gracefully performed at the Commonwealth Games and the Olympics. Aside from performing in theatrical masterpieces, he also featured in the Lego Spider-Man series. Andrew is no stranger to the spotlight, but that isn't his greatest accomplishment. There was once a time where Andrew Mondia could potentially become another what-if story. Today, he's going to explain the situation in his life that the world must pay attention to. In a time where mental health issues are so terrifying, this episode of Simple Conversations might just help you understand an underlying problem in children that we should be worried about.
We talk now about mental health and depression, and we talk about it in adults. And there's a way of explaining what an adult is thinking, but describe what's going on in the mind of a 13-year-old that's severely depressed.
I tried to suppress what was going on with the bullying. You get a bottle of pop and you shake it and then you open it up and the fizzy stuff comes up. Well, that's what happened to me. And it happened in the fraction of a day, really. I went to school. Everything was fine. I was doing my stuff. Some kids from my class, when they came back into the room, they literally were circling around me and enclosing me, asking me questions that were uncomfortable to me. And the thing is, I didn't really think I had the tools to handle it. There was a lack of understanding from the teacher when I look back on it. And I'm really, excuse to the audience, the serious tone, but it's a very serious little bit that we're going to be talking about because it's something very serious. I blew up in class because I just had it. And it was like that fizzy bottle that you shake. I lifted a chair at one end of the room. Fortunately, I didn't, fortunately, there was no one close to me. And then I was just so ashamed. I put down the chair and I left the room. And as a result, the whole day just was sort of in a mixed blur when I got home that night. I even had to, I left the school grounds. My dad picked me up. My homeroom teacher thought I should be in a mental institution without even understanding the facts. I mean, honestly, he needs re-education, to be honest with you. I don't know what happened because he left when I was in grade 8. He left the school, so he wasn't there anymore. But anyways, that evening, I was still in a deep depression that I tried to commit suicide. Growing up in the late 80s, there was no support for kids like me. Now there's better support. When you start to feel like that, I think it's important to talk to someone, even at the schools, if there is a guidance counselor, or talk to someone that you trust. Because when you hold it inside, as much as, you think you're protecting yourself, eventually it's going to come out. And the more we suppress our feelings and we deny letting it go in a very healthy way, the more it'll screw up your life the older you get.
So you mentioned there that you survived, which is it's commendable, to be honest. Like, there's a lot of people that had those struggles at a young age, and like I mentioned, like, you're not developed enough to deal with that at all, especially those feelings. You probably don't even understand what they are. But I want to hear a little bit though about what went through your mind that night when you went home, when you were staring at what was on the floor at the time that you were planning on doing. What was going through your head, and how did you manage to pull yourself away?
I felt there was no way out, really. I was in my room. I mean, I couldn't believe what happened earlier in the day. I just was like, there's nothing left for me. I didn't want to live. It was like rock bottom at that time. It was just like, and I just snapped, really. I just said, you know what? I'm going to try and end my life. And I took this duvet off of my bed, went to this little shack. I grabbed a can of gasoline and soaked this duvet and went down to the field, laid out the duvet, soaked in gasoline, and then I lit it, and fright took over. To be honest with you, at that time, when the fright took over, I just was like, and I just watched the duvet burn up. When I look back, in 2004, I sort of got more into a spiritual practice. I believe that it was the angels that were saving me because, we have, whether you believe it or not, there is energy around us. I think that the fright that stopped me from jumping in the flames, the unseen energy around me.
Take me back to what was a 13-year-old Andrew Mondia feeling or thinking about?
I consider that like my worst year. I was in middle school. I had the worst teacher ever. I mean, I'm sure we've all had teachers that was really bad. I mean, the education system was still old school, like, male dominated field. I had a very bad temper. I just didn't know how to control it. But it also didn't help because at home I was dealing with an alcoholic father who was also a smoker. At that time I was into performing and I liked going to the operas and I didn't have any friends. I was a loner. Luckily, I didn't have it as bad as what you would see in those TV shows in that time when kids were really, really abused. Nerds were really abused, ridiculed. But it's unfortunate that it portrayed people like me in such a negative light. Mind you, Bill Gates, I think, was a nerd, and he's like a multi-billion dollar guy. So, I mean, you have to look at the light of the situation. Yes, because I was bullied and because I was abused physically and emotionally at home, but it also I think it gave me a gift with being more compassionate and more understanding and wanting to bring more light into the world.
What does the next day in the world look like for you when you're so close to just walking away from it all?
I just moved on, really. I think the most important thing was that day just shook me up to the core, but I moved on. It still baffles me. I mean, because it still lives with me and I don't think I really properly dealt with it. And if I did deal with it, it was surface level. I didn't go in depth. I didn't talk about it. And it was not really, it wasn't really until like 10 years ago when I started to write my own one-man show that I performed in 2017 at the Orlando International Fringe Festival that I started to write. I wrote about my suicide attempt and I turned it into an actual poem. And now what I'm doing is I'm writing my memoir, and that is part of the book. And I'm going a little bit more in depth because, when something tragic happens in your life, and um, it can be healing. It's interesting because when I was writing my one man show, there would be certain points where I would stop. I would not carry on because I needed to heal at what I was writing. And there were many, like, to be honest with you, I was inspired by my friend who shared her story on forgiveness. And she actually coached me with my one man show. And she talks about and it's very powerful how healing it can be when you tell your story. Because when you tell your story and when you open up, then you become freer and you can let it go. It's like going through the stages of grief, really, because, we have this denial. Yeah, you know what? Yes, it happened, but, I'm not, you didn't really accept that it happened. It's just, you have this anger. It's like, I got it. But then you have the acceptance. But I didn't really, if anything, when it only lasted probably like a month. And I think I remember when I went to the counselor, going back to the counselor, I didn't think I was ready to talk about it really because one of the most important things I do think is one needs to be ready to talk about it. I think the most important thing is treasure the moments you have and just live moment to moment. And there's going to be a time when you will want to work on what it is that has happened. And if you're a young person and you're going through something and you're open to it, talk to someone or reach out and get some help. We should, kids, depending on the household you were brought up in, everyone should be respected. Kids should be raised. And this doesn't happen in the real world where we're raised in a respectful, most kids are raised in broken homes, really. And it's how you live through it. And it's amazing how some kids that are raised in a dysfunctional home turn out really well. I mean, honestly, and others not so well. So it really depends. It's important that you are empowered to know that you have the strength.
What is it about those extreme moments in our life that help us discover ourselves?
Start with the little things. When you try and experiment and going into the unknown, because going into the unknown is a wonderful adventure. It's just like, and ever since then, I've been going into the unknown here, going into the unknown there. I mean, I got into acting when I was in grade 5, and so why not? And a lot of it, as I mentioned earlier, was inspired by my grandfather. I think everyone should take acting classes, like especially if you do improv classes. Provides great skills in the moment situations. You learn a lot about yourself, and you also, for me, I learned to develop more my intuition. And intuition is something that we all have. We use it every day. You don't realize it when you make a decision. Even kids use it and they don't realize it's intuition. When you're asked a question, like it's intuition when you answer. One of the greatest things is listening to your heart. I mean, I don't know how many kids can say that they knew what they wanted to do when they were 14, because I had just turned 14. My grandfather passed away. I hadn't seen him that much, but it's interesting how you have a strong connection to someone that you hardly remember. And I didn't realize why until I was told that my paternal grandparents had taken care of me for a year when I was a baby. I was even baptized here in Switzerland. Out of 3 of us, I was the one that was baptized. And so a lot of my passion for the arts was inspired by my grandfather. And it was like a light bulb moment, because there's going to be in your life, there is going to be a trigger, something that will turn the light switch on and say, yes, that is what I want to do. I think it's important for one to be open to the possibilities of what is out there, whether you're a kid listening to it or you're an adult. Mind you, most of the audience is adults, but it's like, if you know kids, okay, this is for everyone. It's important that you're open to the possibilities, because you never know what adventure awaits you when it comes to an opportunity. So I'm leaving the 14-year-old when I discovered that I want to be an actor to when I decided to move to London, England in spring of 2006. I had planned methodically a bit, um, but I didn't know what to expect. I didn't even have work, had very little money, I only enough to for a month to survive on, because, the pound was like half of what the Canadian dollar was at that time. So it's like, I planned it in such a way that my vacation money plus my paycheck would be enough, because decided to go blindly and trust in the universe. Honestly, that's what I did. And, and it's the first time I've ever done something like that, to be honest with you. I'm just like, and I cannot believe I lasted 7 years in London. My God. And I left on my terms, okay, because it was like my choice to leave London. But I am an individual going through an experience. And that's what you need to understand is you're an individual going through an experience in life. And it's important that you own it and understand that this is who I am and you embrace it and you just tell yourself, I love you. I love me. I love me. I love me. I love me.
Andrew, let the people know where can they find you, what have you got out at the moment, and what's coming in the future.
Um, well, right now I'm working on my memoir. And so, and I'm planning to probably self-publish it. Um, so it's in my own hands because, you know, whether you go to a publisher or you self-publish it, I just rather have control of it because it's the same difference. You still have to market the book yourself, really. Um, so currently, I'm just working on telling my story, in hopes that like my story will inspire other people. So a lot of it is, as I said, it's just and just having fun and traveling.